Yo, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Open Circle Podcast, where iron sharpens iron and a friend sharpens another. Here we believe in transparent and honest conversation. So in this episode, we'll be having 4 of our team leaders come in here and having a discussion. And we just pray that it gives you value. If it gives you value, please don't hesitate to like, share, subscribe, and even share with a friend. Hope to see you soon.
Hi guys, welcome to another episode of the Open Circle Podcast. I'm Favour and I'm here with
Claudia.
Snowden.
Dilane.
Great. So today we're going to be talking about purpose over pleasure. So I feel like that topic, when I hear it, what I think of mainly is just about like how like God has his will for our life, and then we also tend to have like our own idea of what our will is for our life, and like sometimes they're not necessarily kind of linked together, and then I think that's where the problem kind of starts, because we kind of have our idea of what's pleasurable or like our idea of how we want our life to go, and then sometimes God may not actually want that to be the plan that he has for our life, and then it can be very long and very like stressful and very like heartbreaking when like things aren't really going to plan, but like they actually are going to plan. It's just like your plan is just not the same plan, so you're just kind of like stressing, and then God's just like, oh, don't worry about it, like everything's actually okay. It's just our plans are a bit different, so it can be stressful when that happens.
Yeah.
Were you gonna say something?
No, I was just agreeing.
Yeah, because most times when we say purpose over pleasure, most people will directly go to maybe the pleasure might be the sin. But sometimes it's not always sin.
Yeah. That's true.
Sometimes you may actually want to like maybe make money for your family at this moment in your life, but maybe you're called to ministry. So it's a thing that, okay, you might have to make a decision now. Ministry, family.
Yeah.
I don't have the answers. If I'm being real to myself, I'll probably say, okay, let me take care of my family first. And when they're over, I'll probably go to ministry. But that may not be God's plan for you. So I think a good way to live life is like, I think what China Moda was saying, if you have the heart of God, you start doing the things of God. You won't even be a thing of, oh God, let my will align with your will. They're already aligned. So I feel in a way, when people say pleasure, we mostly think of the sin. Maybe pleasure over thingy. We think of, okay, don't have sex now, or don't do this, don't do something that will upset God. Or maybe it's a case that, okay, I want to take care of my family, or I want to do even good works. Let me give to charity, but God's saying give that to the church. So it's about having like the discernment as well to know what to do and what not to do.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's so much more, for me anyways, purpose for pleasure is, it's so much more about your decision making.
Yeah.
One way I was kind of thinking about it is the Garden of Getsemene and Jesus, at the point at which, like, I don't know, for me that's like the turnaround point for him. Like, this guy has worked his whole life, and at this point, like, he's gathered crowds on mountains and he's done big things, and he's faced with a big decision now because he's about to take the ultimate sacrifice, which is why he came all the way to here. But that's the point at which he has to give up this life that seems so beautiful to us. I guess when you're saying you want to be a Christian, you want to be like God, like Jesus. You want to be that guy who preaches over mountains and loads of people. You want to do deliverance. You want to be that guy of prophecy. But then when it's time now to kill that image and actually sacrifice yourself and be the Son of God, which is what his purpose was, he kind of had to make that big decision. And I feel like, are you going to do what you feel like is pleasurable to you, feed the crowd, do all these big things, or die on the cross, like take the bullet for everyone else. So it's so much about decision making, and I feel like every one of us has to face that at every single instance in our lives. Yeah. What he said just there is something I resonate a lot with. I was actually in college and I was faced with a decision of either I finish my course and graduate and that's the purpose, or I need to drop out and I guess feed my family or help my family in some kind of way. And at that point in time, it's purpose over pleasure. And sometimes it might not be so clear cut to you which one is purpose and which one is pleasure. And that was my cup to bear at the point in time. And I feel like this is a conversation I would have loved to hear about, or something that would have brought some kind of fruition to it.
Yeah, just like how Dilane was saying, and Laulu, it's just it really is decision making, because realistically, like Dylan said, every like moment in our lives, it's all about the decisions we make. As soon as we're born, it's the schools, it's making friends, it's going secondary school, what college you want to do, what career you want to do, and in all of those like moments in our lives, those big chapters, it's like, do we bring God into the picture, or do we pick and then wait for God to be in the picture? So it's kind of like making him the center and asking for his will first before then going on and choosing. Because like in this, everything is fast in this life. Like everything is fast. You need to decide by this date, and you need to have this done by this date, and you can't leave things too last minute, and your parents might be telling you to do this, and aunties and uncles might be telling you to do this, and your friends are doing this, and it's like, what way do you look? What way do you follow? Like, you might be around people and they have a clear-cut like vision of what their purpose is, and then you're talking to God, you're praying to God, and your vision, your purpose is completely different to what you've planned in your life and what you thought your big picture is. Like, for example, like for women, they're like when we're growing up, we're like, oh, I want to be married by 25, I want my house by 26, I want to have my twins by 27. And then you end up being 25 or something, and you're single, still live with your parents. And but not that it's a bad thing. Don't get me wrong. Not that it's a bad thing. But again, it's like, this is how I thought my life was going to be. But then it took a different route, take a different direction. And another thing is, I remember seeing somewhere, it was, I don't know if you guys will get it, but I remember seeing somewhere, it was like, the guy said, so basically it's a dark room, and the guy didn't know couldn't see anything. And then the guy said, can you see your next step? And then he was like, yeah, so take that step. Like, it doesn't matter about like what you can't see, because God is obviously fighting for what you cannot see. But you take your next step, praying and hoping that God has cleared the way for your next step. So when we said we're talking about purpose and pleasure, purpose over pleasure, it's sometimes it gets mixed up by not mixed up, like it's together with like planning and decisions, but sometimes it's like, not sometimes, it is good to just kind of put that burden kind of on God. Let God do it. Let God figure out what's in the dark room.
Make a decision for you.
It's about
you just take the step. Like, all we have to do is take that step. So we have to start to remove the burden of all this decision making and everything, and give it to God.
That's really, because I think even like when we talk about like the like pleasure aspect, I think even when it comes to purpose, sometimes you kind of feel like whatever like route seems like the nicest, or whatever route seems like it's the easiest to go through, then that just must be my purpose because it was so easy. And then like I feel like one thing I've really had to learn like the hard way is, just because it seems like the easiest route, that doesn't mean that it's what God has for you. Like, sometimes it may actually be the route that's not the nicest. Like, you're talking about Getsemene. Sorry, I can never pronounce it properly. But like, Jesus had to like take the ultimate sacrifice. That was definitely not the nicest route. And even when he's there, he's even like, God, if I don't have to do this, like if there's any other way, but if no, let your will be done. But like, I feel like me, the way I kind of was before, like if something was like easy, like if an opportunity presents itself to me, I'm like, it's my purpose. It's so simple. Like, why wouldn't it be my purpose? And then like later on something would happen and God would be like, oh, you never asked me. And I'm like, well, I didn't think I needed to ask, because it just seems so like obvious that this is what you wanted me to do. And then when things are like a bit difficult, we tend to just like drop it. Because this is too difficult. There's no way that God can like call me to this area. But like sometimes it is that like in purpose, there's going to be that lack of pleasure or that lack of comfortability, and you kind of have to like fight your way through or kind of go through it. But then at the end of it, you come out, and then like what comes out of it is something that's like so like, wow, God, I didn't really see, and it requires the faith that you're talking about, that like you kind of take that step in the dark and rely on God, as like, even though all these like different obstacles may present themselves, you just have to like rely on God in that moment to be like, okay, God, if you're saying this route is my purpose, even though it doesn't feel the best, even though it's not the most comfortable, because like you were talking about, like especially the people who go into like ministry, like a lot of the times, like I was reading a book about this like family who like they had like their dad's church who he was going to take over, and it was like the church is established and everything, but then God told him, no, you're not taking over your dad's church, you're starting your own. So God made him pack up everything and move to like some town or something where there was like nothing, and they had nothing there, and like even the family's looking at them like, is everything okay with you? Like you literally have it all set up, why would you go to like a different thing and with nothing? Like God said, you're not taking anything. God said, just go. And they had like 3 suitcases, and they just established the church, and now like in that town it's like one big gigantic church. But at the time everybody's probably looking at them like they're crazy, because it's like, what are you doing? Like this is not this, like, oh, some people even say, are you sure it's God that even sent you to do that? Because you sound so
It's
crazy.
like Noah and the ark.
Yeah, literally like Noah's
literally.
Ark. Yeah, like you just sound so crazy. You're like, why would God ask you to do that? But that I really have learned that like purpose isn't always going to be pleasurable. Like it's not always going to be like a comfy ride and like like a fun like roller coaster kind of thing. It's going to be quite bumpy, but like at the end of it, you're going to look back and
You're
be
like, oh,
God,
that's why I was supposed to do that,
sense,
or like that's why that failed, or that's why I didn't get into this.
There's even been points in my life where I just like is like a
Eureka.
so that's why.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, thank you, God.
Literally, like, you know when they say like thank God for the prayers that he doesn't answer,
Yeah.
because like, you know, we be praying about something like, oh God, this needs to work out.
You know when you're praying.
Or the door doesn't open. There's a reason why the door didn't open.
It's because
It wasn't
literally.
for you. Yeah, that's a very big point.
I don't know. One way I've been kind of thinking about it just when you were going on there is just like, you ever feel like you need to open up your Bible, right, or study the Word at some point, and let's say like you know that you don't know so much about Deuteronomy, and today you were like, okay, today's the day I'm gonna cook up the zeal to go and digest Deuteronomy, but you find yourself reading Exodus instead because you like Exodus, and that's your pleasure. You find yourself in that position, and like the purpose is actually not in Exodus anymore. That was you last year. This is your season for Deuteronomy, but I feel like that was one of them things. Like I found myself pleasuring myself, even in the Word of God, kind of just going to places where I'm kind of familiar.
That you like, that's more interesting.
Used to do, you know, where my
comfortable
interest
for
is.
you.
That's what I'd always go to the
so-
stories, and then it's like, but there's a whole historical part, and I'm just like, I know, but I want to know what happened with David again. Do you know what I mean?
Or even some people are scared to read Revelation.
I because then I'll see the angel of something. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about.
I saw a tweet because we grew up to think angels were like, there are 2 ways.
Yeah,
They were white.
scary
I saw a
looking. They have
tweet
like
or two
100
and
eyes or
I was
something.
like, what? And they say it's beautiful. That's not beautiful. Imagine that appearing to you.
That's why all the angels said, do not be afraid.
It makes sense now.
Literally, it
It
makes sense.
now.
Because they don't look
Yeah,
so
exactly.
wrong.
Because everyone was always afraid. Like, what's going on?
We grew up thinking they were one nice. Nah.
That's so true. Yeah, so I think definitely like purpose is just something that's not always going to be attractive. Like even when we're talking about the angels, like angels present themselves and they're like they're not the nicest looking thing, but they're coming there, they're protecting us, you know, that kind of thing. But
There's
like, it's not
like
attractive.
there's like the most beautiful flowers, beautiful flowers, but if you touch it,
like
they're poisonous.
Roses, even,
Roses
like
have
the
thorns.
they have
Yeah.
thorns. Like things might appear
rough.
beautiful,
Beautiful.
but they're poisonous to you.
Yeah.
They're not meant to be.
I don't know. It was the same with my exams as well. I'm just on that vibe for some reason. Yeah, I used to be in school. Exam time is coming or whatever. You find yourself studying the things that you already know.
Yeah.
Instead of going, you know you're
I
gonna
was
fail
so
that specific part. But you're studying the things
because
that
you
already
know
like,
it.
what's that?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
It's crazy.
Yeah, so we just like comfortability, like, you know, you like what is kind of like safe, but I think that this walk with God, it requires you to really be brave and take that step out, because it's not always going to make sense. Purpose is not going to make sense because God sees ahead, and we just see here. So like, God, you could be like the shyest person, so like your comfortability is that, oh, I'm gonna just be in the background and do something here, but then God's like, oh, I'm calling you to like speak in front, you know, at the front. And so like the way we make our decisions now is based on the people that we are now. So like if like I'm a shy person, I'm gonna make shy person decisions, if you get me. But then God, not that like being a shy person is bad, but like God may actually be calling you to do like
Bigger
front person decisions, and then you're not going to make those. So that's why you actually have to like consult God and everything. I'd be like, okay, God, like even when it comes to like dating and things like that, because like you may think, oh, you want to date someone now, but then God's like, oh, in a year's time, you guys are not going to be compatible at all, because you guys may be like this now, but what I have for you later, there's no way that you guys are going to match up with each other. So like from our conversation, I'm really seeing how it's so important for us to consult God in literally like every decision, because we literally don't see the way, we don't see what he sees at all. So we actually cannot be that responsible for our decisions, because we're making decisions based on like, oh, now we're not really making decisions based on like, oh, like even next week, like you don't know what's going to happen next week, but God does. So that's why when he says do this or don't do that, or like you go here or you go here, he knows what he's talking about. So we probably should listen to him. I probably should listen to him more, you know. So.
It's a bit like you were talking about the family that had to leave their family church and then go to this whole new place and implant themselves. Just so much more like what you just said about keeping God in consultation, everything. I think of Abraham. Like this guy is called to leave everything behind. Like, bro, God is saying, I will take you somewhere far away. Like he's literally saying,
he was called to kill his son.
You know,
and he took that son. He just
He was
walks
about
up
to do it as well.
walks up. He didn't,
Like,
didn't question nothing.
So you have to
That's
have some
crazy.
kind of mad faith, like
And trust.
Crazy
And to
faith.
believe that's actually God.
I know it's God.
Yeah, because you can easily say, "Devil, get thee behind me," not knowing
Imagine
it's
he defied
God.
him. He said no, or he said like that's not God. How could anyone ever tell me to
Yeah.
Yeah.
leave my comfort zone, my family, like go to these mad places? But anyway, it's like that blind faith you need to have. So
Yeah.
you're saying imagine?
Crazy faith.
Favor. You're saying imagine?
No, I was saying like it's a crazy kind of person. I'm just deep in the thing about Isaac.
Just
Because
lots-
I'm just deep in like Sarah was probably like afterwards him having to like explain to Sarah
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh yeah, we were just
And he was just about to.
Yeah, she was probably looking at him like,
Yeah.
yeah, no.
But then deep how mad it is that he gets there and then God provided a sacrifice anyway.
yeah.
The sacrifice was
That's
there.
the thing. We don't see
You
the
don't
end
know.
goal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you don't know what's gonna
Like,
happen
looking
towards
right,
the end.
we have
So-
such tunnel vision.
And
We just see here.
I thought like God is cruel for doing that to a guy who's been waiting for so long for his only
Yeah,
son.
I thought it was
But
mad as
then
well.
in the end, when you see what happens, you're like, God actually didn't even intend to kill him.
Yeah, he did.
Like I feel like God was just trying to put that image of, for me. Anyways, that's the image of Jesus' sacrifice, because on the mountain as well, you know, the lamb going to be slain.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that image is very true, and it shows itself. But he ends up sacrificing what he had provided instead, which for me is kind of beautiful.
It also is purpose over pleasure as well.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
you have the pleasure of finally having your son.
Exactly.
But then it's like, do you remember when you have that son, you could easily be like, oh yeah, because a lot of people is like, when you get your blessing, when you get your thing, it's like, oh yeah, by God. But it was kind of like, okay, now you got what you wanted. Are you still my son? So go sacrifice your son, the thing that you wanted, your pleasure for your purpose.
Yeah.
So
And that just shows how much he was in tune with God as well.
yeah.
Because even I remember years ago when people would come to this country for like to get papers, they'll go to church every Sunday, every Wednesday. They'll be in church, but once they get those papers, they're gone.
They'll do
They're
testimony.
gone.
They'll do testimony service, and then.
They're gone.
Bye.
But there's loads of stories in the Bible that kind of remind us of that, like Jonah. Yeah, like God telling him to go to the city?
Nineveh.
Yeah, to preach and get them to turn to God. But then he's like, I'm not going there because I heard that. It's about the image. I heard that they're evil, they're savages, they do this, they do that, they do this. Runs away and gets caught up in his disobedience. And then when he does finally do his purpose, like the people there
Are saved.
turn to God.
And because of that, basically, like he gets a whole turnaround.
Yeah.
And I think even it shows as well, that story, that like that when you don't follow the purpose that God has for you, there's going to be displeasure. So like even so purpose has uncomfortability, but then also not following purpose is even more uncomfortable because Jonah had to go through a whole ass rubbish cycle, and he also brought people along with him, because when he was in that ship, they all had to suffer. So like
They
it's like
threw him
when
out
we don't
quick.
follow our purpose as well, now other people suffer because we decide not to follow our purpose, because there's also people connected to us. So I feel like that's actually such a perfect story to like describe it, that like how purpose is just so much bigger than us, you know, and it just requires so much. It just requires so much obedience and carrying God along.
Because an individual's purpose, like there's people around, there's people like waiting for you to use your purpose, kind of, and there's so many lives. Like even us doing OC, like this could be our purpose, and then there's so many people that would watch the videos. Come to OC sessions, and they're being touched by us sacrificing our time and obeying God's word for us.
I think at the end of the day, when all is said and done, and we meet our Maker, revelations and all that shebang, like imagine God says, "This is what I expected of you,"
and
this is what you did.
but you only did the
God
bare
forbid.
minimum.
Oh, imagine.
God
Wait.
forbid.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
But anyways, Y'all like, comment, subscribe. I thought he was done. I mean, y'all, you guys like, comment, and subscribe to Open Circle.
Rate the podcast on listening platforms, I guess.
Yes,
Spotify,
yes,
Apple
yes.
Podcast, and leave a comment below if you have anything else to add to the
To bless
conversation.
other people.
Love, guys.
Purpose over
Love, guys. Thanks
pleasure.
for watching.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
I thought you were done.
I was done. It's because you said y'all.